All right, so because we're going deep today.
Deep.
Yeah, like deep into the world of Japanese land scams.
Okay.
And specifically, the story of how Japan's biggest housing developer,
Ooh.
Sekisui House, managed to lose a cool 55 billion yen.
Wow. 55 billion.
Yeah, it's wild, right?
That's a lot of yen.
Yeah, it is.
What's fascinating about this case is that it wasn't some small-time operation. We're talking about a company with lawyers, experts, the whole shebang,
Yeah.
and they still fell for it.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Exactly.
So you'd think a company that size would have systems in place, you know?
Checks and balances.
Exactly.
But sometimes even the most elaborate systems can be bypassed
Right.
with a bit of creativity.
Or cunning, maybe.
Perhaps.
So let's start with the basics.
Right.
Why is land such a valuable target in Japan?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
Land in Japan, especially in Tokyo, it's incredibly valuable.
Okay.
You've got permanent ownership rights, sky-high prices,
Right.
and an aging population clinging to prime real estate.
Got it.
It's a perfect recipe for, shall we say, opportunity.
Oh, yeah, opportunity, for sure.
For the right kind of person, that is.
Right. And enter the Himenshi.
Himenshi.
Yeah, I'm picturing these shadowy figures.
Shadowy?
In like trench coats, exchanging briefcases in dark alleys.
Well, not quite, but the image isn't entirely off base.
Okay.
The Himenshi are a fascinating breed.
Yeah.
They operate within the system, exploiting loopholes in social norms.
Yeah.
It's incredible the things they can do.
And they've been doing this for a while, right?
Well, this is not their first rodeo.
Right.
We can trace their history back through 3 distinct waves of activity.
3.
Yeah, each one more audacious than the last.
So they're like getting bolder.
It seems that way.
And here's the interesting thing, though. They rarely target ordinary citizens.
It's true.
It's almost like they're,
Like what?
I don't know, like Robin Hood in reverse,
Robin Hood in reverse?
stealing from the rich and
Yeah.
keeping it for themselves.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Right.
But they do seem to understand that corporations, especially those with big legal teams, can get a little greedy,
Okay, yeah.
a little bit of greed, a dash of ambition, and a whole lot of blind faith in appearances.
Okay, that's the recipe.
That's the Himenshi recipe for success.
So let's talk about Sekisui House
Okay.
and their very expensive mistake.
Right.
This plot of land they were after, what made it so special?
Okay, imagine this, all right.
Okay.
A 2,000 square meter plot
Wow.
near Omotesando Station in Tokyo.
That's prime real estate.
Prime, it's like finding a diamond in a sandbox.
So it must have been worth a fortune.
By the 2020 Olympics, estimated to be worth over 100 billion yen.
Wow, that's a lot of yen.
It is.
So naturally, rumors start flying that the owner, an elderly woman named Ebizawa Sachiko, is considering selling.
Oh, boy.
Every developer in Tokyo must have been going crazy.
Precisely.
Right. And that's where our middleman comes in.
Middleman.
A charming fellow by the name of Ikuta.
Ikuta?
He approaches Sekisui House, claiming to represent Ebizawa, offering to sell the land.
Bold move.
Ikuta kind of sounds like a Bond villain, you know?
He certainly had a flair for the dramatic.
Okay.
Ikuta was known for these lavish parties.
Oh, really?
Rubbing shoulders with executives.
Creating that aura, right?
Building trust, gaining access, classic social engineering.
But how do you convince a company
Yeah.
like Sekisui House to hand over billions?
Right.
Based on what? A handshake?
Well, a handshake wouldn't cut it, even for them.
Right.
No. Ikuta had to bring receipts, forged documents,
Like what?
a fake passport, a sale agreement,
Okay.
and to really seal the deal,
Yeah.
a genuine seal registration certificate.
Wait, a real certificate?
A real one.
How do you even get that?
That's where the Himenshi's mastery of bureaucracy shines.
Okay.
They found a look-alike elderly woman,
A look-alike?
gave her that fake passport, claimed the original certificate was lost.
And they just believe it.
The authorities issued a new one.
Just like that.
Just like that.
So they exploited a loophole to create a legitimate document.
Audacious, isn't it?
It's kind of impressive.
It is, in a way.
In a twisted way.
And Sekisui House,
Yeah.
they didn't even blink.
Didn't they think to, like, double check?
Their own lawyers raised some red flags.
Oh, really?
But the allure of that land
Yeah.
and Ikuta's smooth talking
Oh, yeah.
seemed to erase all doubt.
It's almost like they wanted to believe it.
There's that human element, too.
Right.
Ambition, ego, the desire to close that big deal.
I can cloud your judgment.
Even for the best of us.
So they're convinced the documents are legit.
Seems so.
They've got this charming middleman vouching for the seller.
Right.
So what happens next?
Well, it gets even more interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
How?
Ikuta arranges a meeting.
A meeting?
Between Sekisui House executives.
Okay.
And, of course, Ibazawa Sachiko.
Wait. They found someone to play the part?
They did. This is insane.
It gets better. Even the lawyers present noticed some inconsistencies.
Like what? Did she forget her own name?
Not quite that bad. She
Yeah.
fumbled with some basic details about the property.
Oh.
Her own life, even.
Oh, they didn't suspect anything.
Ikuta, ever the smooth operator,
Right.
had an explanation.
What was it?
Blamed it on her age, her frail health.
Of course.
It was all part of the act.
Wow.
So they meet the seller, they have the documents.
Uh-huh.
Sekisui House is ready to hand over the cash.
What could possibly go wrong?
Oh, you have no idea.
Oh, boy.
Remember the real Ibazawa Sachiko?
The one who actually owned the land.
The one and only.
Right, the one probably sitting at home wondering what all the fuss was about.
Well, she wasn't just sitting around.
Oh.
Sekisui House got anonymous letters from her
Letters?
stating that she had absolutely no plans to sell her land.
Hold on, the real owners sent a message saying this whole thing's a sham.
Essentially, yeah.
And they ignored it.
Oh, they didn't just ignore it.
What did they do?
They brushed it off as some kind of prank.
Prank.
They thought it was a rival company trying to sabotage the deal.
Seriously? Come on, you're about to make the biggest land purchase in history.
You'd think they'd be a little more cautious.
Wouldn't you at least try to verify the letters? Make a phone call?
Apparently not.
They were that confident.
It seems that way, completely blinded by the potential of this deal.
So they ignore the real owner, but surely someone else must have noticed something.
Well, there were more warnings.
Really?
Other real estate companies, the ones who did their homework.
Yeah.
They reached out to Sekisui House
To warn them.
to warn them about Ikuta's past.
So they ignored the actual owner and warnings from other professionals.
It's like they were asking to be scammed.
It's mind-boggling.
A classic case of seeing what you want to see.
Was there anyone at Sekisui House who wasn't completely caught up in this?
A few whispers of dissent, maybe a couple of lawyers.
What?
Quickly silenced. The excitement for the project. Remember the division chief?
The one who was so eager to close the deal.
The very same. He played a key role in pushing this thing forward.
So we've got corporate greed, ambition, and maybe a bit of naivete.
It's a recipe for disaster.
And disaster is exactly what they got.
The final act was about to begin.
Oh, no.
Sekisui House makes the final payment.
How much?
A cool 49 billion yen
And poof, it's gone.
vanished, along with Ikuta and the mysterious Ibazawa.
Exploiting another loophole, I assume.
A time lag in the land registry update.
Of course.
By the time Sekisui House realized what happened, it was too late.
The Himenshi, masters of illusion.
They really pulled off a masterpiece.
It's less like a con and more like performance art.
You could say that,
Create this elaborate illusion, then disappear.
leaving their audience stunned
And broke.
and very, very broke.
So what happened to these masterminds? Did they ever face justice?
Eventually, yes.
And
The
then-
mastermind, a man named Koyama, so
Oh.
he was orchestrating this whole thing while on parole.
On parole.
From prison for another scam.
This is getting ridiculous.
Oh, and it gets better.
Better.
Koyama was taking orders from another mastermind.
Another one.
This one was in prison at the time.
Wait, so a criminal mastermind running a scam from behind bars?
A true puppet master.
This is like something out of a movie.
Life imitating art, perhaps?
Except the target wasn't a bank or a casino, it was a corporation.
And the weapon of choice, paperwork.
The Himenshi, they're playing a different game.
They understand the system inside and out,
And they use it to their advantage.
which is a reminder that sometimes the biggest threats come from within.
So what happened to the land? Did it just become a monument to corporate stupidity?
Well, after some legal battles,
Yeah.
it was sold for a slightly lower price
Okay.
and developed into a 30-story tower.
So it's a reminder of this whole thing.
A gleaming testament to the Himenshi's audacity
A monument to human gullibility.
and the enduring power of a good conduct.
It's almost poetic, you know?
It is, in a way.
This symbol of ambition, built on lies.
The Sekisui House scam is more than just corporate negligence.
It's a reflection of our own weaknesses,
Our willingness to believe?
our susceptibility to manipulation.
Precisely.
And it's a reminder that the most elaborate schemes can be hidden in plain sight.
The ones that play on our assumptions
Our biases,
and our desire to believe that the system is trustworthy.
which it clearly isn't.
Not always.
So should we all just become paranoid hermits and never trust anyone again?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But a healthy dose of skepticism is always a good idea.
So don't be afraid to ask questions.
Double-check the facts.
Verify identities.
It might seem like overkill.
But in a world where even giants can fall.
A little paranoia can go a long way.
And remember, the Himenshi are always adapting.
Finding new ways to exploit our weaknesses.
So stay informed.
Be aware of the latest scams.
And never underestimate the power of a good con.
The best way to avoid a trap is to know it's there.
Okay, so we've gone through this whole crazy story. Corporate greed, audacity, a legal system that seems full of holes. But what happened after all the dust settled from this Sekisui House mess? Did anyone actually learn anything?
Well, Sekisui House definitely learned an expensive lesson, that's for sure.
I bet.
Their reputation took a major hit, share prices went down, and a few people lost their jobs.
Including our ambitious division chief.
Oh yeah, he was definitely shown the door.
You'd think a company that big could just shrug off a 55 billion yen loss.
It's not just about the money, though that was a big chunk of change, even for them.
Right.
The media had a field day with this story.
I bet they did.
They made Sekisui House look like a bunch of clumsy giants who got tricked by a few clever con artists.
Not a good look.
Not at all, especially for a company that's built on trust and reliability.
So it was a PR nightmare, a financial hit, and probably a lot of sleepless nights for the executives involved.
Oh, absolutely.
But did anything good come out of this whole debacle?
You know, it actually did. The sheer scale of the scam and how bold the people who pulled it off were, it forced Japan to really examine its real estate system.
So they had to take a closer look at how things were being done.
Exactly. Lawmakers, experts, everyone started asking how this could happen and how they could stop it from happening again.
So something positive came out of all this.
It's like accidentally discovering a cure for something while you're trying to do something else.
I like that analogy.
There was a big push for stricter verification procedures for land deals.
Makes sense.
They wanted to make sure property documents were scrutinized more carefully.
So basically they tightened things up.
Exactly. And the government even started digitizing land registries, moving away from that old paper-based system that was so easy to forge.
Right. It's much harder to sneak in a fake document when everything is electronic.
Exactly.
So problem solved.
Well, I wish it were that easy.
Oh.
You see, the Himenshi are like artists. They're always adapting their methods, always finding new ways to exploit the system.
So it's like a never-ending game of cat and mouse between the authorities and these scam artists.
That's a great way to put it. And while new regulations and security measures might slow them down for a bit,
Yeah.
they'll always be looking for that next weak spot, that next person they can trick.
So what can our listeners learn from all of this? Besides, not trusting charming guys who throw fancy parties.
That's a good start, for
Yeah.
sure. But I think the bigger lesson here is that we all have blind spots.
Blind spots.
We're all susceptible to being manipulated, especially when it comes to things we really want or are ambitious about.
Right. We want to believe the best in people. We want to trust those in charge.
And the Himenshi, they know this. They use it to their advantage.
So what's the takeaway?
Don't become cynical or distrust everyone, but do be skeptical.
Okay.
Be willing to ask questions, to double-check things, to not just take someone's word for it because they're wearing a nice suit.
So due diligence, a bit of healthy paranoia.
You got it. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to big deals like this. The more you know about how things work, the less likely you are to become a victim.
Well, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener. We started with what seemed like a simple land deal and ended up in this crazy world of forged documents, secret players, and a company brought down by its own arrogance. It's a reminder to always be careful, to think critically, and to never assume that things are what they seem.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Stay curious, stay skeptical, and most importantly, stay safe out there.